Charles County Government presents the Board of Commissioners meeting.
We are now able to move on to your next item on your agenda, which is item 3.10. It's an update on the Charles County Diversity and Inclusion Task Force and the Racial Equity Statement Work Group. And we have Ms. Hall, who will begin the presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners. We are literally on the dot with time, exactly at 11 o'clock. There's quite a group in your team session today. And I wanted to just take a minute, first of all, to thank the Commissioners for their patience. If you recall, this is a follow-up from your June 2nd conversation. As a result of that session on June 2nd, you did a press release reaffirming your commitment to racial equality and fostering a culture of diversity and inclusion throughout the community. You also asked staff to get together and do a statement that the Commissioners could support. And so Mark asked that Alexis and I, as co-chairs for our GARE group, and let me just also thank the Commissioners for the public hearing as well. The GARE group stands for the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, and it's a cohort that has been through a training program that has lasted in excess of a year, and it's been quite comprehensive. And the members of that group are myself, Alexis Blackwell, Miss Dina Barkley, John Byler, and Miss Kathy Reisinger. And we talked about getting a statement together for the Commissioners and really opted to put that work out to a large group of your staff on a volunteer basis, but I don't want to get into Renisha's presentation today. But the GARE group really started off a lot of these presentations at the very beginning, and we did some training and some ground rules with the group. But I also want to talk about early on in this process, there emerged a natural leader for that group, and that's Ms. Renisha Miles, who is our community engagement coordinator today, and she's going to head up the presentation. But the group was very active, and the group and Renisha really did a tremendous job leading, organizing, listening, and framing the presentation that you'll receive today. And I just, on behalf of GARE, I want to thank the group and Renisha for the hard work and the dedication that they showed behind the scenes to for this presentation this afternoon. It's actually this morning. And so without further ado, let me turn that over to Ms. Renisha Miles. Renisha?
Hello, good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you so much for that introduction, Deb. I'm Renisha Miles, the Community Engagement Coordinator with Media Services, and I'm here to present on behalf of the Diversity and Inclusion Statement Work Group. Before we begin, I would like to allow the members of the work group to introduce themselves. So, Beth?
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Beth Groth. I'm a planner with the Department of Planning and Growth Management.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Brent Huber with Media Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Carolyn Gosling-McCoy from the Office of Fiscal and Administrative Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Elaine Pollard from Human Resources. I'm the Human Resources Specialist.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Phipps, the Senior Center Supervisor from the Department of Community Services, the Division on Aging.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Lori Cherry with the Department of Emergency Medical Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Lucinia Mundy. I am a specialist and I work in the Economic Development Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Deborah Shanks, Physical Fitness Coordinator, Health Promotions Coordinator from Charles County Department of Aging.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Maquita Irvin in the Charles County Commissioner's Office.
Good morning, Commissioners. Marcia Keith, Deputy Director, Economic Development Department.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Sabrine Khalifa, and I'm the Local Management Board Specialist with the Local Management Board.
Good morning, Commissioners. Danielle Mitchell, Associate County Attorney in the County Attorney's Office.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joan Thorpe, Assistant Chief of Accounting, Fiscal Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. John Stevens, Chief of Capital Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tony Rose, Deputy Director of the Department of Emergency Services.
And not present with us this morning, Britta Hertling, Senior Project Manager from Public Works Facilities, and Francis Sherman, Chief of Environmental Services with Public Works Facilities. So now that you have met the group, I want to also, as Deb already referenced, acknowledge our GARE cohort that was integral in helping to bring this group together and guide our work throughout this project. I also want to acknowledge Charmaine Brown, our Chief Equity Officer, who was also important to this process, and Jennifer Harris, the Chief of Care Services, who also played a hand in helping bring all this together. I am going to share my screen now that we Okay, so as mentioned, we are the Diversity and Inclusion Statement Work Group, and you have met all of our participants. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on how the group was formed and what our overall purpose is. So the Diversity and Inclusion Statement Work Group was formed in early June of this year and has collaborated and met under the direction of our GARE cohort. In developing our purpose, it was very important for us to acknowledge three very key things. First, the diversity of the group. So when we created this group, GARE acknowledged the importance of allowing all Charles County government employees the opportunity to participate in this group, because we wanted to make sure that the diversity of our organization was represented in this group. So within this group, you have a variety of employees from all of our departments, varying levels of service to the county, newer employees, to those that have been with us for a while, those of us who have risen from part-time to full-time positions, and even some who have served a certain length of time, left county government and returned. And then, of course, the diversity within the group of the overall cultures and racial backgrounds and things of that nature. So that was important for our purpose. Secondly, we wanted to make sure that we encourage conversations about diversity and equity and inclusion and develop a safe space for those conversations to have, because that's so important for this process. You will learn more about the overall process of the group from Beth Groff later. But again, it's important to mention that in developing our group's purpose, we understand how vital normalizing difficult conversation would be. And also, we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge our overall goal, which is to develop a statement that will represent Charles County government's commitment to diversity and inclusion. And over the course of the process, when we first initially gathered, we were referred to as a racial equity inclusion work group, and we kind of morphed into an overall diversity and inclusion statement work group, because we acknowledge that there are more than just racial issues that set us apart. So that we wanted to acknowledge the diversity of all people, keeping in mind other differences other than race. So Maquita Irvin will share some insight over our overall proposal for what we plan to do with our words, and Brent Huber is going to share our final product, our statement, with you. So with that, I will hand it off to Beth Groff.
Good morning again, Commissioners. Thank you, Renisha. As Renisha mentioned, I'm going to take a few minutes to tell you about the process that our work group undertook to create Charles County Government's Diversity Inclusion Statement. So we had to learn about our group. As you saw from the earlier slide, we have almost 20 people on our work group, and we are a diverse group, which means we all come from different backgrounds and we all have had different experiences throughout our lives. But this also means that we weren't all on the same page with our understanding of race and equity issues. So during our meetings, we took time to get to know each other by sharing some of our own personal experiences with race, both positive and negative. While these kinds of conversations can be difficult and uncomfortable to have, it helped us build trust within our work group, and it also helped us find common ground to work from moving forward. Building our framework. The task of creating a diversity inclusion statement did seem like a very daunting one at first. However, our statement will serve as the foundation of a racial equity framework for Charles County government, and that's a very important point. Essentially, for the process, we broke it down into a series of homework assignments and small group work to make it more manageable. We began the process with identifying words that reflected diversity and inclusion, and they moved on to drafting sentences with these words. From these sentences, each group member drafted their own individual diversity and inclusion statement. Then we divided into 4 smaller groups, which worked independently to come up with one statement to share with the work group for a total of 4 diversity and inclusion statements. Finally, we sent out a survey with these 4 statements to all Charles County government employees for them to rank and provide their feedback. Normalizing the conversation. To work through our process efficiently and effectively, we had a great deal of guidance and support from the Charles County GARE team that you heard Deb Hall mention earlier and acknowledge. The GARE team really helped us learn all along the way by sharing what they have learned at GARE trainings. One of the first steps in developing a racial equity framework for Charles County government is to normalize the conversation around race. This means that we need to foster a better understanding among our employees about race and equity issues so we can facilitate the dialogue using shared terminology. We also need to acknowledge the inequities that exist today and make it a priority to enact change so that these inequities do not persist. Engaging our peers and coworkers. It was very important to each one of us that a diversity inclusion statement be developed that can be embraced by all Charles County government employees. To accomplish this, work group members worked hard to keep our departments informed of the process, and we involved as many employees outside of the work group as much as possible to get their feedback at every stage of the process. We were pleased that we had 166 employees respond to our survey and weigh in on the final 4 diversity and inclusion statements. This process was very inclusive from the beginning, and I think we can all be proud of the diversity and inclusion statement that was developed because of this. And with that, I will turn it over to Brent, who's going to talk about the statement now.
Good morning. Good morning, commissioners. Beth described some of the process, and what we did was that we started with some words, and those words evolved into sentences, and those sentences then evolved into statements. And Renisha's going to share the screen, and what we're going to see here is a word cloud that was derived from a lot of the words. Now, this is a work in progress at this point. We need some fine tuning, but this graphic was done by Tina Kolowski in media, and I think it really exemplifies everything that kind of came forward to generate the statement. The group was extremely organic, and the word grace really comes to mind. We collaborated in such a way that ideas were put forward, they were acknowledged, some were accepted, some weren't accepted, but there was a tremendous amount of grace in everything that happened. And I think that is what generated this statement. So, Renisha, if you will. So Charles County government fosters a welcoming, inclusive, and empowered work culture based on unbiased, just, and equitable treatment for all. We commit to being accountable for creating opportunities to grow and strengthen our community. We embrace the power of diversity. Now I'm going to turn this over to Marquita so that she can talk about what the next steps are.
Hi, good morning again. So our proposals are just another example of how committed our team members of this work group have been to bringing to fruition the words that were thoughtfully placed into this statement. It's a reflection of how committed we are to the necessary and positive progression of our county government and how committed we are to the success and achievement of one another as colleagues and how dedicated we are to ensuring that we're serving our constituents to our best ability. We were bent on ensuring that presenting our statement here today would not be its final stop, but its first. Something that as workers and employees for Charles County government and supporters of our citizens, we can stand behind, stand on, and lift up until it is fully realized. So our desire for action through this carefully crafted statement is in alignment with the decision to prioritize inclusion, equity, and the Chief Equity Officer position, the position of Ms. Charmaine Brown. As Ms. Brown is the expert on this topic, we like the ideas discussed and the proposals given today to humbly fall under her guidance and instruction. We are thankful for her expertise and look forward to continued direction and guidance from her. Continuing collaboration is something that has been expressed as a desire by employees both within and outside of the work group. So we imagine this will look like an extension of the work group that we have here or the implementation of multiple work groups who meet with the goal of moving diversity and inclusion initiatives forward. And making the message visible to all of Charles County, the constituents we serve, and external agencies, we have a number of ideas about making it visible. Two of those ideas, however, are to make the statement visible in every email that is sent out by a county government employee, as well as having it visible in any county government letterhead. I am going to go ahead and pass this over to Ms. Renisha Miles. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rita. So as you can see, this was a very thoughtful process. The group was actively engaged and very passionate about the work that we were doing, and we are excited to continue the work beyond this point because we understand that, as Makita referenced, this is the first stop on a long road that we have to travel to ensure that everyone within Charles County government is treated equitably and fairly. So with that being said, if you have any questions,
Commissioners, any questions?
I do. One of the, as I was looking through this, one of the words I saw missing was equality. And I'm not sure if that was inadvertently left out or if there was a reason, but if you can tell me if that's something that also would be taken into consideration is to use the word equality, because it's great with having diverse and inclusion, there's a sense of equality as well. So I just wanted to say that. In addition, is there a statement from Ms. Brown as the Chief Equity Officer? I know you guys are going to be consulting with her. I wasn't sure if what her participation was in this particular presentation. And the third one is the statement that was at the end of the presentation. Is that what you're leaning toward presenting as a inclusion diversity statement? Or is it going to be, you're still working, is it work in progress? So those are the three questions I have.
Okay, so I'll answer the last question first. The statement that was presented today was the statement that we are leaning towards. So in reference to your first question about the word cloud and the words, that was part of our process in developing this statement overall. We started with words. So the words that you see in the word cloud were the words that were brought forth from the diversity and inclusion work group. So equity, I guess, was not a word, or was it equality? Equality. Yeah. Equality was not a word that was brought forth at the time by the group. But as Brent mentioned, this was still, part of our planning process, and the image that you see is still under draft. So we do plan to meet beyond this time to reformat and rework the word cloud to get it to a point that we feel like it's perfect and it can be used in our marketing and our branding for diversity and inclusion moving forward. So we will take that word into consideration when we do so. So that's not the final product. That was just a representation of the process in which we went through with the words. Remind me of your second question, Commissioner.
That was just the Chief Equity Officer. I noticed she wasn't a participant of this particular work group. Is there?
Well, she was definitely a contributor. She consulted with us in the beginning. Again, we started this process in June, so that was prior to her coming on board. As soon as she came on board, she did join us in our meetings, and she offered her expertise and some training for us so that when we were establishing our framework and getting the work started, she made sure that we were going along the right path. The GARE group and the Chief Equity Officer felt it was very important to allow the members of the work group to develop this statement organically. So they really did take a step back after they got us set up and gave us the tools that we need. They really stepped back and let us do the work. So while Charmaine was a part of the process in terms of making sure that we were going down the right path, she was not hands-on throughout the process because we wanted to make sure the work group and the employees of Charles County were the voices that you were hearing from when you got the statement presented. So, but I mean, she was included in all communication. She was well aware of the process and what we were working with. And if we ever fell off the tracks for some reason, she definitely would have pulled us back on. But she, she has her own presentation and work that she's doing as the Chief Equity Officer. And as we stated, while we are ready to be her foot soldiers and put our boots to the ground and do what is necessary, she's going to be the captain of that ship. And so once she gets her presentation and her work in line, we're going to just fall right behind her.
Oh, excellent. I'd like to, that's ideal to see these groups combine, come together and come up with a really collaborative statement. Because I know you guys have a lot of great ideas and you're sharing a lot of good information. So appreciate it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I see John Stevens has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Renisha. Commissioner Coates, I just want to take an opportunity to respond to your question in regards to equality. That word was brought up, and with the group, there were extensive discussion regarding that. And it was pointed out by several of the members that equality doesn't necessarily equate to equity. And so given that, with the education provided by the GARE group, and that's when we learned. We even saw, it was a particular slide that it showed 3 people looking over a fence. They all had an equal opportunity to see this baseball game, but at different heights, some couldn't see. And then they were also, another slide, they were shown on different heights of the crates, which represented equity. So one of the things I think maybe why it wasn't included is that equality doesn't necessarily equate to equity, and we wanted to focus on equity in that. And so I just wanted to make that clear. And one other thing I want to say, that being a part of this committee, it was, as Brent said, everyone in that committee, no matter how small the comment, it was not ignored. Everyone participated. It started off a little bit, everybody was a little comprehensive. And then when we finally broke through, it was an open and in-depth discussion. I've learned a lot. You think you understand certain things, but as you're educated, as we were by the GARE group and through open discussions, you realize how much you didn't realize what this equity and this statement meant. So that statement that we developed, it was a lot of forethought and a lot of discussion behind the scenes. It may appear that it's just one statement and we just came up with, but it was a lot of work, a lot of openness, a lot of sort of uncomfortable conversations, and a lot of a great group getting to know each other and develop their statements. So I'm particularly very proud of the statement because we've had some excellent contributors to this, to that effort. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that and speak specifically on how well this group came together. Thank you.
So absolutely, and you're absolutely right. Equality and equity are two different statements, and that's why it's important as a diverse community that inclusion means all of them, and kind of grouped as together but separate. So in addressing all of them, you'll be hitting the points of everyone is especially having such a diverse community as we have. The community wants to hear about equality. That is important for the community as well as equity and inclusion. So I just wanted to make that point. If you consider looking at that word, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if any of the other commissioners wanted to make any comments. I did want to thank all of you that participated in this. This is very impressive, just seeing the fruits of your labor up to this point. Also seeing the inclusive nature of those that participated. But I do have a question in terms of the actual statement, and please educate me on this, because in reading the actual statement itself, it's very presumptive in my mind, because what it's essentially saying is the county has been there. The county has always operated with these goals in place. And my question is, with a statement like that, should there not be some reference to at least recognize that the county is striving towards this as a goal? Because I'm reading this like saying, okay, we've always been on this level.
Yeah.
We've always operated with this in mind. And I think a statement like this challenges us to be the best that we could possibly be. And you will have some, and I know you said that a part of this process will also include feedback from the public. I can assure you there will be members of the public that their thinking of where our county is the county has not always been there. And some will argue that even today we have not reached that goal. And so I recognize what you're saying, that this is a work in progress. But I think to make this as pure as we possibly can, I think there needs to be some consideration, that we are striving to be this. Because I don't really know if there's any government on earth that's there. I think the whole commitment to equity and moving forward and recognizing the diverse nature of our entire populations is something that we all strive to achieve. And so I'm just asking that you might consider, in the final product, something that kind of addresses the fact that it may be too presumptive to say that we foster this. That's all. But I think this is great work. I think the commitment of staff on this is outstanding. But that's just just something that I saw when I read it. And I know that you're continuing to work on this. But I think this is great work.
In reference to your statement, Commissioner Collins, we definitely acknowledge the fact that this is a work in progress. We can consider adjusting some word choices to make sure that that is adequately communicated within the statement. We did put the line in there that fosters, or working to foster, moving towards, like trying to acknowledge the fact that we are a work in progress and that we aren't there yet, but the very fact that we are at a place where we have a work group like this, that we're developing a statement that we have recently brought on a chief equity officer, demonstrates Charles County government's desire to get to that place where we are acknowledging diversity and including everybody and making sure that everything is equitable. And as an employee who has worked for the county for a long time, I can definitely say it has been a process, and we definitely have not been there at certain points. But because I'm an employee that has been here for a length of time, left county government and come back, I can tell you that I am very excited about the place that we are in right now, because we are acknowledging the importance of this diversity, inclusion, and equity, and we are walking the path in the right direction. So we definitely will be mindful when we come to a final draft to make sure that, again, it is adequately communicated and we acknowledge that we are not perfect, but we are moving to get there. And I think the very fact that when we sent out the survey to all Charles County government employees, we got great response and some response that several other employees would like to be included in this process. That is a good sign. So again, we are ready to be soldiers on the ground doing the work, and we understand that the work is just beginning, and we are prepared to do that. But totally respect the idea that we need to make sure we acknowledge where we're coming from.
It's outstanding work. I see Commissioner Bowling, he has his hand up.
Patiently. I just want to thank everybody because I'm looking at the group at the bottom of my screen that's involved in this, and I think it says a lot to the people that have taken the time out of their day to be part of this because it's such important work. And I think just my experience in government and in just organizations is that these type of things need to come from the bottom up. They need to start from a grassroots standpoint. And I think because you've come up with this and brought it to us now, it shows the opinions of our employees. And I think it's important to hear from us, but I think the louder voice that needs to be heard are the voices that are you all that have come to and put all this time into it. So, I come to this in a unique position, and I think we all know that. But I appreciate it, and I'm one of those people that is open mind and is listening. And I think it's some really, really, really good work, and it shows our community that everyone is committed to this, not just one group of people, everybody. And looking at the group of people you have of county employees below, it shows some amazing work. And I just thank you all. And I thank everybody on the phone call, or the message. Thank you.
Again, thank everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. And we look forward to working with you to advance us towards diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
You've been watching a Board of Commissioners meeting. For copies of this meeting or to view previous meetings, visit us online at charlescountymd.gov.